Welcome to The Learning Curve, the podcast for parents and educators, where we discuss positive parenting and supporting your child on their learning journey. As parents, we all want to provide the best possible environment for our children to learn and grow. But with so much information out there, it can be overwhelming to know where to start. In this podcast, we will explore practical tips and strategies for promoting positive parenting practices that can help your child to thrive. From building strong relationships to fostering independence, we will cover a range of topics that will help you support your child's learning journey and promote their overall well-being. Join us each week as we interview experts in the field, share real-life stories from parents just like you, and provide actionable advice to help you navigate the challenges of parenting in today's world. Whether you are a new parent or have been parenting for years, we believe that every parent can benefit from a little extra support and encouragement along the way. So let's get started on this journey of positive parenting and supporting our children's learning together. Hi, today we have Shruti Kumar joining us in this podcast. She's an international lawyer turned parenting coach who is based in Netherlands. She's also the founder of Empowered Connections.
Hey, welcome everybody to the new episode of Learning Curve with White. Today I have a very special guest, and she is Shruti, who is an international lawyer turned full-time parent coach based in Netherlands. Now she helps parents to raise resilient kids through connection, joy, and empowerment. So she helps parents with awareness, and she provides tools and strategies to support them in their everyday parenting challenges. She's here today to talk about how to be mindful while communicating with our kids. Now, let's get to know her more, and let's get Shruti to introduce herself as well.
Hi, Loop, and hi, everyone who's listening. My name is Shruti, and I'm a parent to two young kids. They are 6 and 2 at the moment. And as soon as I became a mother for the first time, I figured that parenting is hard. And then COVID happened, which meant I was spending a whole lot of time with my daughter. And that was a point where I started looking at parenting from a different lens. And there were days that were great, filled with connection, and there were days where I would also not show up in my best possible way. I would fall into my patterns of sometimes I'm yelling, sometimes I'm snapping, because there was no scope for me to have any me time or any, chance for myself to fill my cup. And that would often leave me depleted. And I wanted to understand why she behaves the way she does and why am I showing up the way I do. And that is how I undertook this journey of becoming a coach from a lawyer. I wanted to grow in my parenting and I wanted to understand my child and, still have a connected relationship with her. So what came up for me was that oftentimes when we communicate with our kids, we are trying to manipulate them, to getting them to do things by, offering them external motivation such as rewards or bribes. And when they're not manipulated by that, we switch gears and we start forcing them or threatening them. And we're not very mindful in how we communicate with our little ones. So I read this wonderful book by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. It's called Nonviolent Communication. And I cannot recommend it enough because that, I think, changed my life. So I underwent my own journey and figured out that it is possible to lead your child with compassion, kindness, respect, and empathy, and get them to cooperate with you without resorting to those quick tactics. Because even if those tactics work for you in the short run, they probably give you that immediate compliance. Like, you tell your child, you can watch TV if you do this, and they do it. Maybe that momentary compliance is there, but what happens in the long run is that we lose connection. And that's not worth it. So that is why I really am passionate about working with parents and teach them how to mindfully communicate with kids.
Nice. That's a huge change from a lawyer to a parenting coach. And because of your first child, it changes you and change your direction to where you want to go and how you want to further enhance the communication and the relationship with your child.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. So what brought you to, in a way, to become a conscious parenting coach rather than, some of the parents will just say, okay, I'll try to make it up, I'll try to do well, but never to the thought of becoming a coach. So what makes you become a parenting coach?
So when I had my son, I noticed some shifts in my daughter's behaviors, and I felt a distance between us. And because she had just started going to school and I had my son, so we were already not spending a lot of time. And sometimes he would tell her something, she would do the complete opposite. And sometimes the answer to everything would be a no. So it was driving me crazy, and I was sleepless and exhausted. I was like, this can't be it. This is not how I want this to be. I want to be able to hold boundaries without being scary to my child. And that's when I underwent this journey. I studied and I worked with a coach myself. And then I figured that, listen, I'm not the only one dealing with this. And there are a lot of people who have similar challenges, and they have tantruming kids and kids melting down. And I wanted to help them, because I truly believe that we can change the world by changing how we parent, because how we parent a child kind of sets the foundation for that child, right? Like, we are how we are because of how our parents showed up for us or how they raised us. So that's a big part of us. So that is why I made that shift from being a lawyer to a parent coach, because I thought that, this felt like my calling, and this felt like I want to do this. I want to inspire people.
That's really, really from the heart because of what you're experiencing through, and you are here trying to help other parents as well. But what exactly is the conscious communication about? Like you mentioned, like no threatening, no bribing, but a proper communication or conscious communication from us to the next generation. So can you tell us
Yes.
more about that?
Absolutely. So communication is essential to any and every aspect of our life. So what I share today is not just going to help you in the parent-child dynamic, but also maybe with your husband or with your in-laws or with your partner, right? Because, conscious communication is essentially like, how can we mindfully communicate in a way which invites cooperation and collaboration, and, make sure that our relationships stay strong and our everyday lives are smoother, right? Because as I mentioned, parenting is hard. You wake up in the morning. Some parents are struggling with getting the morning routine going. Some parents are struggling with after school meltdowns. Some parents are struggling with bedtime meltdowns. Or some kids don't want to go into the bath, and then once they go in, they don't want to get out. So there are like all these kinds of struggles, and how we communicate can have an impact. So first I want to talk briefly about what a big barrier is between communication between us and our children. And that is that, like, we often explode and yell at them, not when things are pleasant, and also not often the behavior warrants it, but because we are feeling triggered or exhausted or tired, right? Because it's not easy to go to work for working parents, for example, and come back and then cook dinner and then also get a child to listen to us, right? So it is challenging. And often what happens is that a lot of us, as I said, our triggers come up because, let's say, a lot of us growing up were not allowed to say no, or we were not allowed to talk back. So when a child does that to us, it feels triggering, because that immediate default pattern shows up for us, where if we did that, our parents would say, you're being disrespectful. So it's very important to understand what our triggers are, right? Like, because that is when we are falling into reactivity, we are falling into all those traps where we are tempted to yell and scream at them or punish them or give them a timeout, right? I think a starting point for that for parents can be to understand which part of the day feels really hard for them. Is it the bedtime? Okay, I've noticed that bedtime is making me really angry. What am I feeling? What am I needing? And how can I make it more peaceful for me and my child? How can I collaborate with my child? So awareness is, I guess, the starting point where we understand what our trigger is, because it's often our triggers that make us reactive. So that is the biggest barrier, because when things are fine, your kids are listening and they're eating their food without any tantrum, I don't think communication is a problem there. It's only when the triggered moments that bring out our worst also. So what nonviolent communication or conscious communication is about is, it's about building intrinsic motivation in our children so they want to work with us, right? We can do that by sharing power with them, and instead of dominating them or being permissive where we kind of let them do what they want, where we can be firm in our boundaries, but also loving and compassionate, right? NVC, nonviolent communication, is a conscious communication process where we are able to understand our feelings and needs. We are able to understand our child's feelings and needs and work it out with them. So that is what it is about. It stands on 4 pillars, and those pillars are observation, feelings, needs, and requests. Now, the thing is that I would like to go deeper into this if we have the time. Okay, so observation, for example, the first pillar of NVC is about seeing things as they are. If you put the video camera on your phone, it just sees things or hears sounds. It doesn't judge. What happens often is that we observe things from a lens of judgment, right? For example, if I walk into the kitchen first thing in the morning and I see dishes all over the counter, my immediate observation is, what a messy kitchen, right? And I am angry and I'm screaming, okay, if I don't do the dishes, is nobody going to do it? It's going to be that, right? Instead, I can come down and look at the dishes. Okay, there are dishes on the counter and I don't think I can do them all. I'm feeling tired. I did not want to do this. I have a long day ahead. What can I do instead? So simply observing what we see instead of lacing it with evaluation, because when we judge it, then we are looking for a person to blame and find fault with. And that's when we are reactive. For example, if we go into the room of our children and we see clothes on the floor, instead of saying that you never keep your things well, we can see that, hey, I see clothes on the floor. Can you put them in the laundry basket? Sometimes it's just creating that pause between first thinking and gathering our thoughts, understanding what we see, and just sportscast it, just say what we see instead of adding that moralistic judgment to it or evaluation, because that is when the other person can get defensive because it is coming like an attack, right? Yeah. That, you never listen to me. So, no, but I did do the dishes the other day. So it becomes like the point is lost. It's very important to come from a place of wanting to observe instead of evaluate. The next pillar of nonviolent communication is feelings. There are feelings and there are false feelings, right? Like, for example, if I tell you that I'm feeling very sad, or I'm feeling very scared, or I'm feeling confused, I don't think you're going to argue with me if I say those feelings, because those are my feelings, right? Yeah. But if I tell you that you don't appreciate me, I don't feel appreciated, that's a false feeling, because you may be feeling sad because you're wanting acknowledgement. That is the real feeling. But I think you don't appreciate me. It's not a feeling, because it is, again, the other person gets defensive here to say, no, but I do appreciate you. When we talk about our feelings, it is important to kind of talk in I statements and take responsibility for what my feelings are and what my needs are, and express them in a way that does not put any weight on the other person to fix it, right? If we tell our children that you make mommy sad, that's a very big burden to place on children, because they're not responsible for your feelings. So how can we communicate? Like, you make mommy very sad when you go to school late in the morning. We can instead, I'm feeling really sad about how often we are arguing, and I'm really longing for us to communicate clearly and calmly. That can be a strategy where I am taking responsibility that I am feeling XYZ and I am needing XYZ. So how can we make it happen? Taking responsibility of what we are feeling without putting the burden on the other person is very important. That's the second pillar of nonviolent communication. And the third is needs and strategies. So often when our children are crying or they're upset, let's say they go to a shop, they see a toy that they love, and we say, no, you have too many toys at home. Or if they say, I want to eat chocolate, no, you can't eat chocolate for breakfast. Or let's say they break the toy, don't cry, I will get you a new one. Those things may be a strategy, but they're not, like, there is a step before that, and which is like offering empathy, right? Oftentimes, like, parents say that my child cried about how I cut the banana or the color of the plate or cup, right? Understanding what their need is or what our need is really important. In that moment, I don't think it's about the color of the cup or more about the toy. I think it's that they want autonomy and they are trying to get it aggressively because they're not able to meet it normally. So they just try and increase their volume to get their needs met, right? And same with a toy. Instead of shutting children down for having feelings, it's important to kind of empathize. It is kind of, for example, if I go to a shop and my daughter says that I really want this frozen castle, okay, I think my response would be, oh yeah, it looks really cool, doesn't it? And you really wish to have it. How about we put it on your wish list? Or instead of saying that, okay, I'll buy it for you, or no, you are not going to get it, sometimes children just want to be heard and seen in their experience. They don't want you to kind of fix it. They don't want you to give a solution. They just want you to understand that, hey, this is important to me. And if we just express that, hey, I get it. Like if my daughter wakes up in the morning and says, I want chocolate, and instead of saying no chocolate in the morning, I can just meet her where she's at by saying that, wouldn't it be amazing if we could just wake up one morning in a chocolate wonderland and eat as much chocolate as we want? So that kind of, I am meeting her need to be understood through fantasy. I am not saying yes, and I'm not just saying no, but I'm saying it in a way where I'm first empathizing with her and then working out with her that, hey, when we eat chocolate first in the morning, sometimes you don't eat your breakfast. So how about we eat your breakfast and around snack time you can have chocolate? Essentially not going into the strategy immediately. For example, like if I get hurt or if my child gets hurt, and we often say that you're okay, you're going to be fine, it's no biggie. But is that how I would respond to an adult? Like if I bump my head against the car while getting out of the car, and somebody tells me you're okay, I'm going to be really mad at them. I'm going to, like, I think the only response that's okay is, ouch, that hurts. Are you okay? Like, instead of you're okay, you can ask, are you okay? Like, meeting them where they are in their feeling with the same or similar intensity kind of shows them that you see them and you hear them. Because sometimes the needs that our children have seem trivial to us, and we feel like, why is this a big deal for you? But it is important to them. The third is understanding needs, our needs and our child needs, and understanding them, not coming up with a quick solution or a fix because, oh, my child said he wants this, so let me just go get it for them. That is the third pillar, needs. And the last and very important pillar is requests. Oftentimes we as parents make demands like, you have to do this, you need to help me with dinner, I can't do this all by myself, you need to step it up. Like even with small thing, you need to clean up your room right now. Of course there are some non-negotiables, like you cannot run on the road. There I am demanding, I can't make a request, would you be willing to not run on the road? That's not going to work. Not everything is an emergency. So making a request is like clarifying how you both can move forward from this point. One sentence that helps with this is, would you be willing? If my child is jumping on the couch, instead of saying, don't jump on the couch, or couch is not for jumping, I can see her that, hey, I see that you really want to hop like a bunny. Come and jump on the floor and show me how high you can jump. Or let's move our bodies and go outside and jump on the trampoline. So we are redirecting them. We are requesting that, okay, that's a no-go, but how about a request? Instead of that, you need to help me with dinner, I can rephrase it as, I would be so excited by your help with the kids when I get back home from work. Could you play with them while I cook dinner? So essentially requests are very specific. They're not general. Like when I go into my daughter's room, if I say clean the room, it's a very abstract phrase, and that often like kids don't understand what that even means because they don't share your priorities. They don't care about cleaning the way you do. But if I give her a very specific request, can you pick up all the blue tiles and put it in the box? Then she knows exactly what needs to be done. So it's important that our requests are positive as to what they can do instead of what they can't do. Because, for example, to my son, if I say that, don't hit your sister, he will probably go and hit a friend. So I have to tell him that, Ryan, can you keep your hands to yourself? So requests have to be something that are specific, they're not general, and it potentially answers your who, what, when, where, and how long kind of questions. They're doable and so we are not asking a 2-year-old to clean their room because it has to be age appropriate, or we are not forcing a 2-year-old to share their toys because that concept is not there yet. They don't know what generosity means yet. So we can model it for them and we can encourage them, but we cannot force them that you have to share your toys with your friend. That's not going to work. Also, the important thing with a request is that no is an acceptable answer. We are not like hooking somebody with our request, they get to say no. Like if I ask my daughter, would you be willing to clean your room? If her answer is no, I can go further and try and understand, okay, what's happening? Why don't you want to clean your room? Because I'm playing right now. Okay, so would you be willing to clean your room after you're done playing? Yeah, sure. So kind of like not being very attached to the outcome of what our request is, but being okay with a no. So that's why I said that request only when it is negotiable, not with a non-negotiable. Like I won't be asking my child, can you hold my hand when we cross the road? I will just tell her that you have to hold my hand when we cross the road. Yeah, it's important. These are essentially the 4 pillars where we observe without judging, where we share our feelings using I statements, and then we are clarifying what our needs and the needs of our child are and how can we collaborate, and then we are making a request instead of a demand.
These 4 pillars are so powerful and so useful, especially in the parenting world. So when you were giving the examples, at least I know how to relate. I know I can relate and I know how to make use of it, rather than when someone tell me, oh, no, you shouldn't say that, you should say this. Like, why? So how? So at least you have the example, like parents who heard it will understand how to actually apply all these pillars into their parenting goal. And those that you have mentioned is really, really happen, and I can totally resonate as well. So especially when we adults, we are so rushing, always rushing, and we just want to get things done. We are so attached to the results that we forget about the feelings. We forget showing the empathy to the children as well. And we expect them to live up to our expectation without understanding and knowing that they need time to understand what's going on.
Yes.
Our thought is like, you should already understand. I'm already hearing you, that kind of thing. But actually they don't, and it takes time for them to learn. Just like how it takes time for us to learn as well. And because we have already learned it, and we thought that since we know, they should know.
Yes, absolutely. I think when I started this work, this observation versus evaluation was the hardest for me because I felt like, oh my God, I judge so much. Like everything that you could have also done that. Like language itself is like aggressive and it is attacking. You never, you always, that when we use these absolute words, and how often it results into bigger fights when we talk like that. Because we are attacking, so the person in front of us feels defensive and they want to attack back. Sometimes it just doesn't help, right? Sometimes if I taunt my husband, I'm sure he will be less likely to help me than when I request him. I feel like if I just asked him to help me, his answer would have been yes. So why do I have to talk like that? But it's just how we have experienced life so far. So that's how people talk to each other, unfortunately. It's hard to kind of unlearn and relearn. A short way that maybe your listeners can take back with them, it is called I can but less, which means that I'm going to focus on the I, where I'm talking in I statements, taking responsibility for my feelings, and then can, like where I'm telling somebody what they can do instead of what they can't do, right? Like instead of don't hit your sister, keep your hands to yourself. That's an example of can. And but is, so what the problem with but is that often we say something really beautiful and then we say but. Like if my daughter says that, can you play with me? And I'll say, oh, that's a lovely idea, let's play, but I have to do the dishes. I've kind of negated everything I said in the beginning. I can instead say that I would love to play with you. Right now I'm doing the dishes, and I can play with you in 7 minutes, some random number. But the answer is yes. It's not, but I'm doing the dishes and I can, but, so not saying but enough, and then less. With toddlers and young kids, it's very important that we are not giving too many instructions at once, because I've seen how that plays out. Like
Yes.
sometimes in the morning when I'm rushing, I'm like, you're still not wearing your jacket, you're going to be so late, your shoes are not on, your backpack is not ready. And she doesn't know what she is supposed to do next. If I just tell her shoes, she'll go and wear her shoes. If I just tell her jacket, she'll go and wear her jacket. So with kids, less is more. The fewer words you use, the better. I can, but less. I statements, can do and what not can't do, not using but as much. And the last is less, using less words to express what we want with kids so that they can follow and they can process information, and not too many instructions at once. That's a helpful way to remember. And the thing is that it's what we can do is that we can try maybe one thing, that okay, for the next 1 week I'm going to talk in I statements. I'm not going to blame people, or I will take responsibility for my feelings, or I'm going to try and tell my toddler what they can do instead of can't do. So taking it step by step is important, because if we try and do it all at once and we're not able to do it, we're going to feel guilty. It's important to take baby steps and then build it up as we go.
That's true. And also for adults, we also cannot take too many instructions at one time. That's why nowadays people are always feeling like overwhelmed.
Yes.
So it's very, very similar to how the kids having it. Like we're giving
Yeah.
so many instructions at one time. So it's,
Yeah.
if you feel like overwhelmed, so please understand the child also feels the same when you give so many
Absolutely.
instructions. Yeah,
Yes.
that's how they feel as well. To us,
Yeah.
it's like, because we have already done it, and to us, it's very simple. But to them, is first time.
Exactly.
Or I'm not still not experienced in handling so many things at one time. So it takes
Yes.
time to really learn and get used to it. We have to be really, like what you mentioned, showing the empathy and understand their feelings as well. Instead of like just throwing all the instructions, getting them to meet our expectations when they don't even know exactly what are we expecting.
True. Absolutely.
This is really, really useful, and I hope everyone is able to understand the pillars that Shruti has just mentioned, which is observation, feelings,
Yes.
needs,
Yes.
and request.
Correct. You got
Right.
it right.
Yay. So these are the pillars that Shruti has mentioned, and hope that parents who are listening can take this and make use of it. If you have any question, of course, you can come back to Shruti and ask. And also, the second takeaway from Shruti is I can, but less.
Yes.
Using the I, and then rephrase the request by using the word can.
Yes.
Don't
Instead of
neg-
can't. Yes.
Instead of can. Don't negate whatever you say using the but, less use of the but, and using less words.
Yes. That's correct. You
Less
got it.
instructions, yeah, for the kids, in order for them to able to follow you what you actually want them to do.
Yes, you summed it up beautifully. Thank you.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's really, really useful. And I can totally resonate with what you have mentioned, how to use them as well. With all the pillars and all the words, it's kind of like, wow, to ourselves, it also feel overwhelming. How can I change all this within one day? Actually, we can't.
Yeah.
So it takes
It's
time
a
for us to
process.
change. Yes, it's a process. And like what you say is like, we need to unlearn and then relearn all this as well. And we have to be very open-minded to learning all these. Not exactly a new technique, but a technique that has been there, just that we just don't realize it.
Yes.
And parenting children nowadays is very different from the past as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's very beautiful and really amazing. Wow, thanks for sharing all this, Shruti.
Thank you for having me. I love
We have
chatting with
one
you.
more takeaway for the parents. What would be the last thing or one thing that you want the parent at least take away one main thing from this session?
I think one important thing would be to, first of all, understand and be aware of our triggers, because if we are not aware of our triggers, we can't manage it. So it's very important to be self compassionate. It's important to be self aware and also kind of reflect on how we are showing up when it's really hard. A moment is very hard with our children, right? Like, what led me to yell at her? What was I feeling? What was I needing? And what can I do next time to kind of meet her with more compassion? Or how can I meet my needs so I am able to show up for her in a way? The awareness of our triggers is really key. Parents can maybe start by understanding or reflecting on which moments during the day are hard and why is it hard. That can be like a starting point for parents.
Parents, if you are listening, please take note of this. This is one main takeaway from Shruti that you need to bring it home and start applying it.
Yes.
Right. So, Shruti, if they have parents who are struggling with parenting, especially with young kids, or they have further questions or they want to learn more from you, where can they find you?
I have a website. It's www.empoweredconnections.nl for Netherlands. And on Instagram, I'm empowered.connections. And I work with parents one-on-one and in a group setting. So if there is an interest or if somebody has a question, please feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to support you.
Thank you so much, Shruti. Yeah,
Thank
I will
you.
be adding Shruti's website and her Instagram onto the show notes. If you are looking for her, don't forget to check out show notes as well to get her contact. Thank you, Shruti, for
Thank
all your
you.
sharing. It's really, really wonderful and so happy to have you here as well.
Same here. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And thank you all the parents out there who are listening and teachers as well or educators, whoever who are dealing with children, young children, and learning how to manage own triggers and how to manage communication with the next generation. All right. Thank you so much, Shruti, for being with me and sharing your valuable insights with all the parents. And thank you for parents for listening. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Okay.
See you.
See you.
Thank you for tuning in to The Learning Curve, the podcast for parents and educators. We hope you found our today's episode helpful in supporting your positive parenting journey and your child's learning and development. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite listening platform so you will never miss an episode. And if you found value in what you heard, we would appreciate it if you could leave us a rating and a review. This helps us reach more parents like you who could benefit from our content. We also want to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please don't hesitate to reach out to us through our website or social media channels. We are here to support you on your parenting journey and are always happy to hear from our listeners. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more valuable insights and strategies with you in our next episode.